I'm just looking through a bunch of these little kits to figure out what I'm going to build today. These are a bunch of Woodland Scenics Scenic Details line kits. These ones are ones I bought years and years and years and years ago, but I just took a look online and I discovered that not only are they still selling them, all of these kits that I've got here are still available, which is amazing. And I took a look at the prices. Um, Here's the list price in Canadian from back like 20 years ago. This little backhoe model went for $18.15, though a bunch of them I got on sale and even at some train shows for better prices. So you can look around and find some good deals. But I mean, these ones were obviously such a good deal. I bought two of them, and the same with these little chicken coops, which I just like these chicken coops. I built one of those for a club layout years ago, and I really liked it. So I picked up a couple of them there, and what else have they got in this line? Some just general purpose details. Now these are all metal kits, metal castings. I don't think it's lead. I think it's harder than lead, but I don't know exactly what it is. But regardless, I'm going to, I don't know. Actually, I think I'll build this one. Partly because it's a mystery. I don't know what exactly it is. It's clearly a little shed, and actually, now that I look really carefully in there, it has chickens. So that's a third copy of the chicken coop kit. And just looking at the picture on the box, the amount of extra details that come with it are just so cool. I mean, it's a little shed itself with which is neat, but there's an anvil on a stump. There's a bunch of chickens. There's little pieces of wing fence and stuff, and there's a little bench sitting beside it here, with some buckets and things on it. So even if I don't need all those parts in there for this kit or for the scene that I'm going to use it for, wherever that happens to be, I'm not sure yet. I've still got all those extra little bits and pieces that I can put somewhere else. Anyway, let's get at it. So it's really simple. It's four sides and a shed roof, a little fence to put outside, and then an assortment of details that aren't actually shown on here, but are in here. Like this little tree of chickens. Sprue of chickens, tree of chickens, whatever. There's the stump with the anvil on it. What's that? Oh, that's a little watering dish or feeding dish full of chickens. Can I get in any closer? That's cool. So what do we got here? A side. Oh, that's the back. It's got a bunch of nesting boxes molded on the inside and a rain barrel molded on the outside. And you can see the molding on the outside. Let's keep getting pieces out here. On those two sides anyway, looks like it's mostly, it's a variety of materials actually. Slide these guys up here. And then the roof. There's the underside of the roof with board details and stringer details. And then the top is clearly intended to be tar paper with a couple of pieces of corrugated tin and just a random chunk of wood and a couple of, can you see those? Just a couple of random bits of crap thrown up on the roof. And then it's got sort of an improvised gutter and a scupper for the downspout that goes into the barrel. Zoom back out again a little bit here. And what else have we got here? Oh, we got the little piece of fence rail. Oh, it's kind of like a trough, I guess, with some more chickens. And then what's, What's that? That is just a little bucket with a chicken sitting on it, I guess. A wash tub or something. All right, so step one, both according to the instructions and just according to how you always do a kit of castings, is clean and dry fit. Then assemble them, arrange, and at the very end, paint, which isn't on there, but obviously it's going to need to be painted. So let's just see what the edges of these, the meeting edges of these castings are. So there's that back wall, and this one. So it looks like there's some flash on the corner there. There's an assortment of ways that you can deal with that. It's a soft metal. You can't just do it with your knife. You can also grab a needle file, and I've got an assortment from an assortment pack that I picked up at Princess Auto eons ago. If you're in the States, anytime I say Princess Auto, just automatically translate that to Harbor Freight and you'll be fine, because they have very much similar stock of parts and stock of tools, and similar pricing actually. So that didn't take very much. I'm probably going to have to clean up the top edge there to get the roof to sit on it. And it looks like that little scupper was wanged at some point here. So try and, actually no, that's dilapidated. That belongs like that. Executive decision. So this is going to have to sit. There's a molded edge on there, which looks like the tar paper is intended to roll over the edge. But that'll go. That looks reasonable-ish. Let's look what the sides look like. So there's one side, and that's fairly clean on top. It looks like it's got a bit of a bend in it from bouncing around in the kit box for so many decades. That's fairly smooth on the bottom. Those are all going to meet up nicely. Okay. So that's this side here. And where'd the back go? There's the back. How does that meet? Those meet in a little lap joint. Yeah, that's reasonable enough. Okay. Set those guys over there for now. Here's the front wall, and it needs a bit of cleanup along the top by the looks of it. So I'll just knock that couple of high spots off. I'm guessing those are probably sprues from casting. And then just give that a little cleanup on top. That edge again isn't going to be seen, so it doesn't matter if it's extra shiny. I just want the roof to more or less fit properly. And then around the door, the chicken door, not the man door, you notice there's some little bits of flashing in there, so I'll just knock those out with a light touch of the knife while trying not to take the chicken's head off. That'll do nicely. The bottom edge is good, so it's going to sit properly on the ground. There's a little bit of roughness in there, in that half lap joint, or that lap joint. So I'll just quickly touch that with the file. That's all it is. That's all it takes to clean these castings up so it'll all go together. Now I'm just going to spend a bit more time putzing around doing exactly that kind of thing, and I'll get back to you in a minute here. Okay, so here it is with the flashing all cleaned up, and I've just thrown a little elastic band around it to kind of hold it in place, and then put the roof on, This is just dry fitting to make sure it all is going to go together. It sits there, it doesn't rock. And we'll just look at the underside of the roof. And it all seems to be fitting together pretty well at the corners. So now, the big decision, how to stick it together. Okay, I've got an elastic band wrapped around it just to hold it square and in place and together. I'm just touching the corners with some crazy glue, let it kind of creep in there just to hold it. And then mix up some epoxy. Even after that diatribe on epoxies, I decided to use my old faithful Loctite weld. I'll just put it around the perimeter of the roof here. Because ultimately, if I can glue the roof to the four sides of the structure, then that's going to hold the whole thing together and lock it in place. Just get a nice fit in there, just like it did when I dry fitted it. And use a toothpick to clean up any bits of squeeze out on the outside. Kind of blend it in like gap filling putty. And then also clean it up on the inside a little bit. Not that anybody's going to see up in there, especially when it's painted, but you know. So that looks okay. Now set it aside to dry for a while. It looks like my epoxy has all set up and filled in the gaps, and it's not going to fall apart this time. I've got the flashing cleaned up on these chickens. So now it's time to get some paint on these, and as usual with painting, we'll start with primer. I was at one point thinking that I would just hand paint everything right on there and leave the sheet metal kind of this discolored silvery color it is, but upon further thinking, I've decided that primer is probably the best way to go. Now traditionally, you'd just use either a gray primer or maybe an oxide primer, but I remember talking to an old modeler way back, and he suggested that for things that are going to have lots of shadows in it, you actually use flat black as your primer, and then put the colors on top of it more as dry brushing to pick up the details rather than having to wash the black in at the end. So I'm going to try that just because I've never done it before. Alright, it is tomorrow. Time has passed and that paint is nice and dry, though it's not nearly as flat a black as the can indicated, but whatever, we'll work with it. Move that tree of chickens out of the way for now. We can still see pretty well all the details, including the nail holes and tears in the tar paper and the little chicken nesting boxes in the back there. So now, if I highlight and dry brush mostly all the all the surfaces, I should be able to come up with a reasonable facsimile of painted, at least to the best of my limited abilities. Here's a thought about the aging that tar paper. This is just some powdered gray paint. What happens if I scrub that into the tar paper areas? That's not bad. That'll make the tar paper look a bit more tar papery. Now then, when I put dull coat on that, that's really going to weaken that. But maybe I won't put dull coat on it. I don't know. Okay, next experiment. I've got 3 different silvery ones. I've got the Silver Craft paint, the Model Master Silver, and the Model Master Steel. I'm just going to try it on some of this oversprayed area here. And clean off the brush between. I'm not sure which one's going to look better on that black. Let them dry in and then see which one's going to look better. Obviously, I'm going to have to put some rust or something over top of them when they're actually on here, but well, let's just play with it and see. Okay, I gave those about 20 minutes to dry, and then so that you wouldn't have to endure even more me goofing around, I put a smear of Polyscale Roof Brown just with my fingertip across the bottom of them. What else can I do to them to make them a little bit different? Let's try some of my transparent black ink. Get a little bit on my fingertip. Smear it across there. Does that do much? Not really. Maybe add some into the roof brown. That's starting to look better. Okay. So with a combination of things, as usual, it's not going to be just a single thing, but a combination of them. And I think I like this one better, which is Model Master Steel. That one looks, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit grayer. Maybe that's not too bad either. That's this one here, just craft store paint. I don't know, I'm gonna have to think about that. Actually, yeah, maybe I will try some of that. This is still damp, so I'll just try it. Oh yeah, and if I go sideways, then I get a bit of a dry brushed effect too. That's good. What do you think of that? I'm obviously going to have to be a little bit careful in some spots, but that's not too bad. I don't know, what do you think? Actually, I like that. I'm just gonna go with that, I think. Maybe a little bit more in the middle there. And then I'll throw some kind of brown on it to rest. I like that. Yeah, I'm just going to go with that. And here I was stressing about it. Ultimately, it's paint, right? If you don't like it, just paint over it. And now for dry brushing, if I'm picking, you don't notice because I'm not in frame. I'm picking up a little bit and then dabbing a bit off so that it doesn't completely coat. It just hits the high spots, and I'm being sloppy here. take my damp paper towel and clean off that piece at the bottom, which is really supposed to be wood. Okay. Oh, and there's one little bit there. Okay. Now then, to the roof. I was going to do this differently, but I think I won't. I think I'll just do it like this. Just a little bit of a wipe with the paper towel. That's cool. I'm not quite sure what that is up there, what it's supposed to be, or what it's going to be. But, is there any more sheet metal on here? No? Okay. I'll let that dry and think about what to do next. But now I'm going to attack this wooden side here and maybe the barrel. Actually, maybe I'll start with the barrel. So what I've done, I've mixed up this kind of grayish brown using this polyscale brown, which I have no idea what it was called, and this gray craft paint, and I've got kind of this color here, and we'll see what it looks like. Oh, it's not too horrible, I suppose. Again, I'm sure everybody's going to have their own opinion on what looks best and most realistic. You've heard me say before that I am somewhat colorblind, so colors are just kind of a suggestion. And if you don't like them, colors that I've chosen, so be it. I don't know, that's not horrible. I think I will just leave that for now. On the front here, there's a piece of plywood that's not as old and beat up. So I'm going to add, I don't know, maybe some of this raw linen. Let's see what that does when I mix it in. I don't know, how does that compare against the raw toothpick wood? A bit more brown, maybe a bit more gray. I don't know, let's see what that does. The worst that could happen is I have to take it off later. Looks like there's holes in the plywood anyway. I'm trying to get I'm trying to go for a sort of a dry-ish brush effect. I don't know if I'm succeeding at it or not. It's probably too much. Again, this isn't rocket surgery. This is, shall we call this art? Arts and crafts time. Close enough. Hit up this wood. Oh, that's even too much there. Hit up this wood down here. So this end is made out of board and batten siding. Which isn't super common in my part of the world, but for a farmer's shack, you know, they can do anything they want. Actually, this dabbing it on here looks not too horrible. That chicken's going to obviously want painted properly later. One's a board under the eave too. Let's hit that one. don't know what that, oh, I guess that's kind of some tar paper and guttering. We'll leave that alone. Oh, that looks not too horrible. Maybe I'll hit the underside of these rafters too. There's this board here. Bit of tar paper rolling over the edge. And there's some boards underneath there. I'm not going to be quite as careful because it doesn't look like it's made of a million different things. And the only people that I'll see in here anyway are people that are peeking in through the windows from the back. But it will brighten it up a little bit inside. Make it not quite as shadowy and dark. Which I might actually want it to be shadowy and dark on the inside. Oh, what's that? Did that need to be? There, give it a little bit of a swipe. That's the inside of a little door. And the more kind of poking I am with this, the more kind of half-assed it is, which is sort of what it's going to look like anyway. I probably should have not gone quite as light in there. But this is drying a bit lighter, a bit darker anyway. For now, that's close enough. I think I need to lighten that up a little bit. That sheet of plywood there, that's too dark. How am I going to do that? So that's a bit of linen and some gray. But you know what? I can see some of the texture of the plywood coming through. I think I'm going to just leave it like that and quit dicking with it. Let it dry and see what happens. So let's see what we've accomplished so far here. Take a look through the windows. It's kind of grubby. Those nesting boxes, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. Guess I just have to wait for the next edit on this video while I decide on that. For the barrel hoops, I'm going to use Polyscale's Grimy Black. There's obviously other brands that you could use. Grimy Black is a fairly standard model railroady color. Okay. Downspout, sure. Well, it's already pretty black. Yeah, that doesn't help any. I think maybe I'll see if we can just add a little bit of that. up there, just kind of smear it in, whatever that is, whatever that is. Well, that's a brick. Okay, well, I won't do that then. Add some grimy black to my already tar papered roof. Sure. Covering up those paint stains that I made earlier. You could just keep going forever, touching little details with random different colors of paint. But I think for what I'm doing, that's not too bad. I mean, it's still really rough. It's not going to be in the foreground. It's going to be in the background. And how much time do you want to spend on something that's going to be glanced between two other buildings and behind a tree or something? So at this point, I'm just going to let the paint that's on there harden up for a day or two probably, and then I'm going to hit it with just a thin wash. I'm not going to use my alcohol-based wash this time because that one has a bad habit of turning these water-based paints all white and yucky. You'd think after doing this for a couple of years that I would learn to check if the camera was on. So after letting this thing dry overnight, I've started doing a bit of weathering on it. I'm using a combination of my raw sienna ink, which I got a little puddle of there, and my translucent black ink, which I got a little puddle of there. I'm using them straight out of the bottle rather than using the diluted in alcohol versions that you've seen me use before, because I've discovered, I think I mentioned it earlier, that using those on top of a water-based paint, using the alcohol thin on top of water-based paint, tends to make it go really white and cloudy and gunky looking. So I'm not going to do that. But this sheet metal up here, I've given it a quick wash with the sienna ink and then blotted it off. And then given it a quick wash with the black ink and then again blotted it off. And I've done that there and there, and on the sheet metal on the front, and then the brick and the wood, I've just given it a wash with the transparent black ink. I think that looks pretty damn good, actually. Let's let you get in closer and take a look. So there's the rusty, gunky metal on the roof, and the treatment on the wood, and on there and there. So on the back, I haven't done the ink thing yet to it, which is fortunate because then you actually get to see me do it, as opposed to me doing the rest of it previously with the camera off like a damn fool. So I'll get a little bit of the sienna here, and I'll just do I'll do the whole thing. Get into the corners later, but so there's that, and then blot a bunch of it, or as much of it off as I can. So it's kind of left a stain there. I hit just a little bit more in the corners here so that it's evened out. It doesn't have to be perfect and even though. Matter of fact, you really don't want it to be. Then, clean that off the brush a little bit. Put a bit of water down and just clean my brush off. And then with the black, which is just out of the frame here, and again, this is translucent black, right? So it's not going to make a huge stain, but just enough to darken it up. A bit on the barrel, a bit on whatever those things are down there. And again, just to blot it off. I'm not picking up huge amounts here, but there we go. Very rusty metal. I'm just going to touch a few places where I can still see some shine coming through. And then inside, I haven't touched it at all. I haven't inked it at all, so I'm just going to give it an inking in there, including on the edges of the chicken coops. I'm going to try and avoid blackening the chickens, because this isn't a movie about black chickens. Come back, black chicken, come back. Alright, and there it is. I think for not too much effort, that looks pretty damn good. It's not an expensive kit. They're very common. It was easy to put together. It was only half a dozen pieces. And I've still got to finish painting the extra chickens and the anvil and all the other detail bits and pieces. But even just with this, and even just with the very rudimentary paint job I gave it, I think it looks pretty good down on the farm. As always, thanks for watching. If you have anything to say about it, please comment down below, and I will talk to you again.